So some time ago, I did a reaction slash type of debunk video on a video that Critical Drinker made about Fantastic Four quite a while before it came out. And it was funny because this whole thing was being reactionary based on some stuff that Grace Randolph, of all people, said about the movie. And none of it ended up being accurate, really. Like, oh, Reed's gonna be spineless in this movie, and 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 Sue and Silver Surfer are going to be like teaming up to take down Galactus and all that stuff that just ended up not being true in the slightest. Um it went a little bit better than I expected. The dislike to like ratio wasn't great on that, I'll be honest. But I was expecting to get like assaulted by some critical drink. But we're here again because I've heard that his Supergirl video is quite cringe. And so I've armed myself. I watched the trailer just a little while ago. If you want my thoughts on that, I think it looks great. I'm there. I don't want to see anything more. I'm sold. But we're gonna see what Drinker has to say. Now, before we start, I am not going to pretend to be an expert. I mean, I don't feel like that's great. Yeah, here we are. Anyway, I'm not gonna pretend to be an expert on Supergirl. I think she's cool, but I've literally never read her. I have not read Woman of Tomorrow. Obviously the story that this is based on, this is called Supergirl Woman of Tomorrow. But we'll just see. We'll see what he says.
This movie is a wacky, irreverent adventure about a dysfunctional, loose cannon protagonist with a love of dancing and 1980s pop music who uses snarky humor to mask their inner pain and turmoil. They're not your typical superhero, that's for sure.
Um, I don't think that she did any of that in the trailer. I think she's been pretty transparent about how screwed up of a person she is. But all right, let's keep
Sure,
going.
but when they get embroiled in a world-ending conflict, they're forced to team up with a group of likable misfits. They're not your typical superhero team, that's for
Forced to team up with a group of, what do you say?
a group of likable misfits. They're
I didn't get any of that from the trailer. Um, that she was talking to a person about Krypton's destruction. I don't see how that translates to teaming up with a group of likable misfits. But sure.
not your typical superhero team, that's for sure. Our gang have to learn to put aside their differences and work
What
together to
gang?
save the
What gang?
day. And along the way, our main character finds a new surrogate family in this crazy group of outcasts and learns that sometimes the real heroes are the friends we make along the way. This isn't your typical superhero movie.
I I just don't understand because like what in the trailer gave him that impression? Like we don't know what Kara's arc is gonna be. He's acting like he's already seen the movie. And beyond that, like this is your typical superhero movie. He's making it sound like it's a it's a concept that's been run into the ground, but has it? Obviously he's likening it to Guardians of the Galaxy, which whatever. James Gunn is a producer on this film, so I'm sure he had some sway as to the presentation. Oh my god, I just smacked my microphone. I'm so sorry. As to the presentation and the visual style of the movie, to a degree, but he didn't direct it or write it, so I don't know. But like Guardians of the Galaxy is like the only one that you can think of that does that, right? What else are you gonna say that did it? Ant-Man? I don't whatever.
That's for sure.
Yeah, do
You
us all a
know, it's
favor.
interesting how a movie that was, officially at least, neither written nor directed by James Gunn is somehow shaping up to be the most James Gunn movie that ever James Gunned. I don't know how else to say it, but the trailer that just got released yesterday is basically a comprehensive checklist of every tired, played out James Gunn cliche from every superhero movie he's ever made.
What I find interesting about like Drinker and Mahler and whoever else is this like this disgust that they have for James Gunn that did not exist before he took over at DC. Nobody said when Guardians 1 or 2 came out that James Gunn was a hack or a fraud or that he was, just this blight on the superhero genre. I don't get that. I don't get why all of a sudden James Gunn is the villain. Obviously, they're pretending to be like Zack Snyder fans, but the problem is the Snyderverse ended for a reason. People weren't going to see the movies, you know, and it was pretty obvious that the writing was on the wall for quite a while, right? Like, Man of Steel made money. Batman vs Superman and Suicide Squad both made a lot of money. But then, like, what happened after that? Aquaman made a pretty good amount of money. Justice League didn't. Wonder Woman did modestly. But, like, after Infinity War came out, DC just couldn't keep up. You know? And it was like Shazam did very modestly. Nobody saw Birds of Prey. Nobody saw Wonder Woman 1984. And the ones that didn't like it very much. The Suicide Squad did really well on streaming, but not in theaters. Nobody saw Black Adam. Joker doesn't count. The Batman doesn't count because those aren't Snyderverse movies. Nobody saw Shazam 2 or Blue Beetle or The Flash. It's like, if you liked the Snyderverse so much, why'd you stop watching the movies? You know? Like, I'm not a Zack Snyder fan in the slightest, but I don't see Zack Snyder's name on a project to go, oh, this guy's still making movies. I think it's cool that he's still making movies. And I think it's cool that people like his movies. Whatever.
There's the dog to kick things off, because there's always a dog in a James Gunn movie, because everyone knows that putting a cute furry animal in your movie is pretty much the quickest and laziest way of speedrunning your way to audience sympathies.
Is he... So the Scooby-Doo movies have a dog in them, obviously. Is he saying that Rocket is the dog of the Guardians? Because I don't see what else that would be. Also, we're showing a clip from Superman. It's the same dog. It was established in this movie that Crypto belongs to Supergirl. I'm not crazy about that, because I don't really see what you gain from that, but whatever. How are you going to complain that the dog from Superman that belongs to Supergirl is in Supergirl?
We've got the obnoxious use of 1980s pop songs, because by golly, James Gunn sure does love his classic pop music, which has the interesting effect of pissing me off.
I mean, if we're being honest, that has kind of just spread through the superhero genre quite a bit on its own. You know? Goodbye Yellow Brick Road was used for Ant-Man 3. Immigrant Song was used for Thor Ragnarok. Sweet Child of Mine was used for Thor Love and Thunder. Like, retro music is just kind of, taking a bigger hold in the genre. I mean, for Christ's sake, there's a whole Wonder Woman movie set in 1984. Obviously, they used 80s music for that. Are we really trying to say that, like, all of that is James Gunn's fault? Because when you really want to talk about the resurgence of 80s nostalgia that's happened in pop culture over the last decade, what do you think is the biggest proprietor of that? It's Stranger Things. Stranger Things is the biggest TV show to come out in the last 10 years without any competition. I can't even think of what's in second place. Like, Game of Thrones was the biggest show, and then Stranger Things was the... And as Stranger Things went up, Game of Thrones went down, right? So, 80s nostalgia is really big right now. Why do you think they made three more Ghostbusters movies? Why do you think they made another Top Gun? The 80s are coming back just in general. It's not just James Gunn. Golly. We're only a minute and a half.
Because I know the studio's gonna absolutely jump on this video the moment I play more than a second of the trailer with audio, and also because after being forced to listen to Kate Bush on repeat in Stranger Things like I was trapped in some kind of Guantanamo Bay torture session,
He chose to watch Stranger Things. I highly doubt that, Scotland Yard came to his house and subjugated him and forced him to watch this.
Developed a thorough and abiding hatred of this lazy, cringe, nostalgia milking bullshit. It's
So he is acknowledging that Stranger Things also exists and has a pretty big role to play in 80s nostalgia, but he is still like not acknowledging that has anything to do with what's happening right now.
not cool and quirky anymore, it's
That's
just
Khan
fucking
from Star
tired.
Trek 2.
Also, and I'm hardly a musical expert on
Hey,
this
Antonio
one, but I
Banderas.
kinda
He
have
loves
to
this.
question the song choice here. Call Me by Blondie was written for American Gigolo, a movie about a male prostitute. What the dickens could they be hinting at here? Anyway, it's time to introduce our main.
I don't think it always matters. I really don't think it. I mean,
Character Kara. She's not your typical superhero though. She's a drunken, cynical, messed up party girl who likes to cut loose and do her own thing. She's definitely not here to live up to your expectations, that's for sure.
Girls get it done.
again, he talks about this as if it's this huge trend that's taken hold of not your typical superhero or whatever. That's what being a superhero is for the vast majority of characters that go through their, hero's journey, right? Tony Stark was a degenerate gambler and alcoholic and womanizer, and then he sacrificed his life to save the universe. Scott Lang was, a struggling father who, well, he was always a little altruistic, right? He went to jail for trying to do the right thing, but some characters like Steve Rogers or Liu Kang are born to be heroes, right? But the vast majority of them don't work that way. Wade Wilson, James Howlett, I want to say even I just watched Shazam last night because it's a Christmas movie. Even Billy Batson, a lot of characters are just not typically on the straight and narrow until they have their call to action. There has to be an inciting incident that makes a person want to do good, for the most part, right? Same thing happened with Bruce Wayne, even though he was a kid. Frank Castle. I just don't understand why we're acting I don't know. If you compare it directly to Marvel, most of the MCU's heroes right now are pretty well functioning. Sam Wilson's in a good spot. I think Bucky Barnes and Yelena Belova and the rest of the Thunderbolts are mostly doing okay, even though not all of them are great people. I just don't really get this angle, I guess.
She's played by Millie Alcock, who turned in a great performance in House of the Dragon, and I'm sure she's going to do her best here. I mean, she's not exactly statuesque like I'd imagine Supergirl to be, but whatever. It's not like we'd expect her to do
statuesque like I'd imagine Supergirl to be. I'm sorry, do you think Supergirl is built like She-Hulk?
crazy stuff like work out in a gym or anything, but she looks
Maybe she does.
fine as the drunk, out-of-control party girl who's going through a midlife crisis at 23 for some reason.
Because if we're being honest, well, okay, so this shows you that Critical Drinker doesn't know anything about Supergirl. She's not really 23. She's not actually younger than Clark. As you could probably tell by the fact that she remembers Krypton, she's older than Clark. I would hazard to say that Kara Zor-El in this movie probably has developed a drinking addiction in order to cope with the fact that she, watched her people be wiped off the celestial map. Clark doesn't have any memories of Krypton. Kara does. She's older than him. And then there's some stuff with suspended animation and sci-fi mumbo jumbo that makes her younger technically. But Kara is older than Clark, and that's just how it's always been. You can liken it to anime if you want to. Naruto never knew his parents. Sasuke did. He spent years with his parents before they were killed. So it's not exactly the same, but yes, they're both orphans, but like Sasuke carries a lot more darkness as a result of like not only knowing his parents before they were killed, but seeing it happen. You know, that stuff will mess with you. You know, I think it's understandable for Kara to become an alcoholic in response to that. Um, what was I about to say before that? What was I about to say before that?
To do crazy stuff like work out in a
Yeah,
gym
I don't
or
know why we're
anything,
assuming
but she
that
looks
Millie doesn't
fine
work
as the
out.
drunk, out of control party girl who's going through a midlife crisis at 23 for some reason. Oh my goodness, it must be such a drag to be
I've
young
never seen
and
Supergirl
hot and
be like
superpowered. Can't
super
imagine
yoked.
how you cope with it. Quirky, pseudo-retro science fiction gags? Don't worry, we've got you covered. Because clearly when you have the ability to fly and travel through space, a bus is the natural choice for getting around.
Maybe she's lying low right now. Maybe the planet that she's on, maybe they don't take too kindly to Kryptonians if there are still a fair chunk of them, which there typically is more than just. There's usually like around a dozen Kryptonians. But maybe she's got to lay low and she can't be just flying around and zipping her heat vision around. We don't know the context. It's a trailer, dude. We don't know the plot of this movie, dude. Calm down.
Actually, why the fuck does she even bother wearing a trench coat when she's basically immune to temperature? Oh right, that's why. Time for a fight scene, I guess. Let's assemble our group of accommodating.
Rorschach also wears a trench coat. Blade wears a trench coat. I just don't think that that's good enough. Be like, oh, yeah, that's a James Gunnism, especially because you wanna know something funny. Star-Lord doesn't wear a trench coat after the second movie. That's why he showed Star-Lord from Guardians Volume 2. He's trying to manipulate your memory, but my memory immune to that level of genjutsu. He switches to short jackets. And he wears a short jacket for the bulk of the first movie as well. The second one is really the only one where he wears a long coat the whole time. But yeah, in the holiday special and in Guardians 3, wearing a short coat.
Stuntmen to get the shit kicked out of them, but
Also, did he put anyone in the Suicide Squad in a trench coat? Not that I can recall. I'm thinking like Bloodsport, Savant, Peacemaker, Harley, Javelin, Blackguard. Nobody that's coming to mind in that movie wore a trench coat. And neither does anyone in the Peace. So I really hesitate to call that a James Gunnism, especially because nobody wears a trench coat in Superman either. Except for Kara.
don't forget to work in that snarky James Gunn humor.
Okay, this does not look like this is gonna end well.
For you guys.
Nailed it.
Is that
Who
James
wrote
Gunn
this
humor?
Shite anyway. Anna Noguera, eh? Not exactly a
I think that's the same kind of that was in the.
screenwriter I'm familiar with, but surely she must have some pretty impressive accomplishments if she's been charged with writing a $200 million blockbuster. Let's take a quick look at her IMDb page, shall we? Oh.
Okay, so we're complaining that this is this writer's big break. Everyone that's a major name in the industry had a big break. Did you know who Christopher Nolan was before Memento? Did you know who Quentin Tarantino was before Reservoir Dogs? What are we talking about? Why are we complaining about the littlest, stupidest things? Every writer has a very first project. You know, Stephen King had a first big hit at some point. Colleen Hoover, don't know why she came to mind, had a big hit, and it was her first hit. Everybody starts somewhere, drinker. What was your first video that blew up?
Oh. You know when Marvel used to hire small-time indie directors for their big-budget movies because they knew they'd be too scared and overwhelmed to do anything other than obey studio orders? I can't help but think of that right now. Anyway, it doesn't matter
That's
who wrote it. The end
entirely
result is
speculative.
the same. I am
The director of Shazam had made, I believe, one actual feature film before doing Shazam. And it was a feature adaptation of a short film that he had also made called Lights Out. And I think that the first Shazam movie is pretty freaking good. Now the second one I think is entirely Warner Brothers' fault for being terrible. There's nothing that I can really say about that one. But like, I don't know, man. Like, I don't know who wrote and directed every freaking MCU movie or DCEU movie. It's just like, sometimes they're just made by people who we don't know who they are, and that's okay. Let me ask you something, Drinker. Who wrote Avengers Infinity War and Endgame? Probably think it was Anthony and Joe Russo, right? No, it wasn't. It wasn't. Like, I don't see how that's even the least bit important. You know? Like, Chloe Zhao, before she did Eternals, she did Nomadland, and like her whole thing is like in-depth character studies. And I think that to that end, Eternals worked out exactly the way that she wanted it to. Unfortunately, the movie's boring, but that doesn't mean that Marvel brought her on just so that they could control her. You know? Ryan Coogler made Fruitvale Station and Creed before he did Black Panther. And you mean to tell me that the scripts for Black Panther and Black Panther Wakanda Forever just don't have any of his influence? You don't think that he is the reason that those movies turned out the way that they were? Some people just have more artistic vision than other people. That's all it is. Oh man, we've been here for 21 minutes. I gotta wrap this up.
These movies, man. The forced
tired of what
humor,
movies?
The overbearing music, the desperate attempts to be edgy and different, the visual diarrhea that looks to be 90% green screen, the predictable plot points and story beats that you just
bet you
know
love
is going to
Rebel
be
Moon,
shoved
though.
into the standard James Gunn mold because that's literally the only thing he's capable of producing now.
I hate so much about the things that you choose to be.
There's a word that keeps lurking in my mind
get
whenever
it.
I think of James Gunn films, and that word is sincerity. Not because they actually possess it, God no, but because they're so completely lacking in it that it actually feels they're taking something away from the audience on a fun.
So he's gonna sit here and try to convince us that he didn't feel anything inside, or when we were watching Rocket be abused and tortured as a third movie. Like I mean, you have to be a particular type of cynic to just refuse to be moved by anything, you know. And I'm not saying that like every single thing James Gunn has ever done has touched me emotionally, but I mean, I thought there was something nice with Bloodsport, like accepting cuddles from a rat at the end of the Suicide Squad. You know, I felt something when Bloodsport immediately moved to protect Ratcatcher despite not knowing what the situation even was. I felt something when Rick Flag died. Like, and Drinker fans are going to be like, well, that's just because you're easy to impress and you're fucking whatever. But like, why do you watch a movie and just refuse to feel something? And we all know that in June, he's gonna do a video about Supergirl because he's gonna go see it. Like, take a stand, dude. Like, if you're, like believe in something. If you're so anti-Supergirl, I don't want to see a video from you on Supergirl after it comes out. Because I know you're gonna go see it. Because you did the same thing for Superman. Whatever.
Fundamental level. He's the movie equivalent of an insecure teenager who's so scared of being mocked and ridiculed that literally everything he says and does has to be cloaked in a protective shield of sarcasm, cynicism, and ironic humor. You can't make fun of him because
you
he's
calling somebody
doing
else
it to
cynical
himself.
is...
But holy fuck, does it make for a hollow movie
that sure
experience.
Is something.
You really can't get invested in anything or anyone in a James Gunn movie because it all feels like a setup for one big joke.
What do you mean?
I think
what is he
people are
talking
starting
about?
to feel it. For all Zack Snyder's faults as a storyteller.
Here it is. Here it is. I promise you he loved Rebel Moon. I'm gonna look and see what he said about Rebel Moon.
And believe me, there are many. One thing you can't accuse the guy of is insincerity. His films might be slow.
But how do you quantify sincerity? You can't just say You can't just say someone doesn't have it and then someone else has it. And it's like, oh, well, you know, Jonathan Kent told Clark to let people die and not try to save them. Martha told him that he doesn't owe the world anything, but he chooses to be a hero anyway. That's sincerity. That's the same thing as Clark finding out that he was sent to Earth to conquer it and choosing not to do that. It's the same thing.
Bloated, self-important, dour, and overly serious, but you can tell he's 100%
Overly serious, and he shows Sucker Punch?
committed to the story he's telling. And there's a kind of simplistic honesty in what he does. He's sincerely trying to show you who he is and what matters to him as a filmmaker. We even ran a poll on Open Bar a few weeks ago asking the audience if they preferred Man of Steel, a movie that's been thoroughly shit on over the years, or James Gunn's Superman by James Gunn. And the results were like 90%.
I mean, but look at this. Look at the way that he puts it. Like he puts Superman in the most derogatory terms that he can, and he's talking about his fans, specifically his fans, and the community that he's fostered, teaching his fans to be against James Gunn on principle alone. Obviously, they're gonna choose Man of Steel when you've told them not to choose Superman. You could have you should have put Man of Slow Motion and James Gunn Superman by James Gunn. Make fun of both of them. Why are you only picking one to be disingenuous about? I don't see because he's contradicting himself now. Because he's saying at the beginning of the video that James Gunn is only capable of doing one thing, and that there's all these James Gunn isms, and that's how he makes his movies. Is that not his filmmaking identity? Let's just assume that he actually wrote and directed Supergirl. Does he not have a directorial style? Does Quentin Tarantino not have a directorial style? Does Christopher Nolan not have a directorial style? You don't call them one-trick ponies, but you call James Gunn a one-trick pony because you decided not to like him because Warner dropped your boy. Warner didn't even drop Zack Snyder. He left. He left to deal with something deeply personal and difficult for anybody. They picked James because he was able to take unknown characters and make them household names. And he had already been fired by Marvel before. They probably worked out a deal with him as he was working on the Suicide Squad. Why else do you think Peacemaker came out a couple months after that? Why the hell would they greenlight a show about Peacemaker? Because they trust that James Gunn could take unknown characters, C-list characters, D-list characters, and elevate them to being part of the zeitgeist in a way that nobody, like, 15 years ago, you didn't see anybody dressing as Doctor Strange or Ant-Man or Star-Lord for Christmas. For Halloween. And now you're seeing it. Now you're seeing it with Peacemaker. Now you're seeing people cosplay Bloodsport, you know? And people are like saying Mr. Terrific was a scene stealer in Superman and they want a Mr. Terrific show. People want a Mr. Terrific show. James Gunn made that happen. I'm not being a James Gunn meat writer. I'm just looking at the world in a way that makes sense. But you're saying that he has a directorial style and that he makes all of his movies the same way and that he can't, like, separate himself from what he's making. And then at the same time, you say that he lacks sincerity and he can't be true to himself in anything that he makes. And you're saying that Zack Snyder just has sincerity because that's the guy you like. That's all it is. You can't quantify something like sincerity. Ugh. We gotta get through.
Percent in favor of Man of Steel. That's not an endorsement of Man of Steel, it's an indictment of James Gunn's Superman and everything that it represents. Because when you get right down to it, I honestly think most people would choose deeply flawed sincerity over polished duplicity. What I'm trying to say with all this pretentious bullshit is that this trailer made me feel weary, somewhere deep down inside whatever passes for my soul. It's too much of everything that I'm sick of at this point, and I'm willing to bet that I'm not the only one who feels this way. God only knows what it's going to do at the box office. If Superman can barely scrape its way to $600 million world.
Do you guys remember, though, when he and Mahler were saying there was no way it's gonna hit 600 million? And now he's like, well, it hit 600 million, but like only barely. It only made a little bit less money at the box office than Man of Steel did. But according to reports, it still raked in more raw profit at the box office than Man of Steel. I don't know how that factors in. I don't care about that. But I think it's worth considering the fact that like Man of Steel came out at such a time that the last Superman movie was 7 years ago, and it wasn't very well liked in general, right? I think people were just excited to see the character in theaters again. And it was before superhero fatigue had really started to take hold. Because, I mean, Avengers was brand new. People, I mean, look at how much money Iron Man 3 and Thor the Dark World made. Both of those movies out-earned Man of Steel. And I would hazard to say that Man of Steel sits right in between those movies as far as quality. I think it's a little bit worse than Iron Man 3 and a lot better than Thor the Dark World. But back then, random-ass characters were turning in 600 to 700. Doctor Strange, I think, made like $600 to $700 million. Its first time out, you know? But the landscape just looks different now. Not to mention that there's now streaming. A lot of people just wait. A lot of folks out there, because it did incredibly well on HBO Max. It was in the top 10 for like quite a while. Because people are like, well, I'll just wait. You know? And so, because people are like, well, it actually sold fewer tickets as well because the tickets are more. That plays a factor in people not wanting to go to the movies anymore. A lot of times it takes something really special to get folks motivated to go see a movie. Like, Avatar is going to smash the box office this week because it just does. That's just what it does. You know? Like, but if you look at what really did well this year, Minecraft and Lilo and Stitch. Are we going to say that Minecraft and Lilo and Stitch were the two best movies of the year because they did the best in the United States? Because that's quite silly. That is quite ridiculous. I've seen plenty of great movies bomb at the... Mission Impossible: The Final Reckoning was a fantastic film that did not do very well at the box office, but I don't think that they care too much about that because it's the last one. They're not worried about Mission Impossible 9 because it's over. And I think that there are other metrics than raw box office numbers that determine whether a movie is good. There's merchandising, because we're talking about superheroes. There's streaming numbers, you know? And for everything that you want to say about how much you didn't like James Gunn's Superman by James Gunn, they start filming Man of Tomorrow in January. Okay? I think, or it might be later than that. But they're about to start filming the sequel pretty soon. Man of Steel never got that. So, I mean, what more is there? What more is there?
Wide, despite the longest and most obnoxiously desperate marketing campaign in history, what chance...
It's the most obnoxious. The trailer didn't even come out until like maybe a month and a half before the movie did.
do you think this fucking derivative, tired, played out abortion of a film is gonna have? It's like if you've been at a party all night, it's 3 in the morning and you're getting ready to stagger home and pass out on your kitchen floor, and some dickhead comes in with a tray of shots and screams,
Does he hate Pedro or something?
let's get this fucking party started. No, the party's over, James. It's been over for like 5 years now. You're just too wrapped up in your own PR to realize.
5 years? $5 years? Let's look at a movie that came out 2.5 years ago. Oh, wow. Oh, wow. Um... Now, like I said, like the Suicide Squad didn't do super well at the box office, but I mean, the only movies in 2021 that did were like Spider-Man: No Way Home and what else came out that year? Hello, are you with me? Like, what's going on? Oh man, look at that. It seems as though people by and large quite like these movies that he made. I just watched this last night too. Still love it. Still love it. I wonder what. Oh wow. Oh wow. I wonder what people have to say about Peacemaker, because that was also within. Oh wow. Oh wow. Wow, 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 wow. What else came out in the last one? The Suicide. Take a look here. Oh wow. Oh wow, 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 wow. And of course, who could forget the most recent? Oh wow. Oh wow, 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 wow. Wow, 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 wow. The party is over according to who? The party is over according to who? And it just frustrates the hell out of me that like everyone's just wanking Drinker because he just talks and the many lies of Mia Khalifa. Okay. 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 Anyway, I'm going insane. I did not think it was going to be this, but if you made it on a scale of 1 to 10, how excited are you for me? I'm at about a 7. Um I'm I would be more excited if it was like there was a new Flash movie or something coming out. Like I said, I like Supergirl, never read any comics. Didn't even watch her show. I watched the episodes where she crossed over, but that's pretty much it. I uh I need to I need a damn drink, but it's 12:30 in the afternoon. I can't do that yet. Anyway, that's all I got for you guys. I'll see you next.